working every day to make sure that we're able to stay in touch with what's going on in the business world from so many different aspects. Appreciate Karen and Bill both today, and give a shout out to our fabulous Jim Satterfield, who's all out in the field and working every day. So thank you, friends, for joining us. Let us know how we can help.
Well, Brenda, thank you so much. This is Karen, Karen Masullo. I'm your presenter for today. And I do want to encourage anyone who is in the Atlanta area or nearby to check out that professionally speaking presentation. It's terrific, especially for those of you that would like to increase your comfort and your public speaking ability. It's a terrific session and a great way to spend a day in a wonderful place at Maggiano's. I love that restaurant. So if I'm in the Atlanta area myself, I definitely will stop by and see you. Everyone, I want to thank you today for joining us. Thank you, Bill Baker, for introducing the session. If you have any questions during today's session, I'd like you to feel free to use the GoToWebinar dashboard console on the right-hand side. I think it's on the right-hand side of your screen. And you can use the chat feature, and if a question comes through and we have time, I will certainly address them in the session. If not, we will assure that we will follow up with you via email post-session. There will be a paper, I believe, that's posted today on this session. It may be there already. And it includes images of all of the slides we're going to be looking at and the key points in this session. So you can go to our website at firestorm.com on the front page and look under resources on the right-hand side of the screen as you scroll down. And you'll see it and many other papers that you can download and review at your leisure with your teams. Also, if you'd like a replay of this session, you can go to our YouTube channel. That's linked from our website as well in many places, and that's YouTube Continuity Experts. And we have a special channel playlist set up for University of Alabama and all of our sessions, and you can sit down with your teams and watch replay and cover key points as you work through. So today we are going to follow up in our previous sessions. So far this year we've talked about how you assess and how you communicate and how you decide what your vulnerabilities are. And last month we discussed what keeps you up at night and natural disasters. And this month we're going to talk about human disasters, or what we have wrought upon ourselves and how we accidentally create issues and how you can look for those in your own organizations. Now, one of the things that we did find out, we did a high-level survey last year over a period of many different sessions, and we had a total of about 900 responses to, have your employees been trained on phishing? And only about 50%, a little less than 50% said yes. So if we have a problem with human creating challenges in our organizations, but we're only training 50% of those people, then whose fault is it when 50% of the time we get caught by a phish? And it's important to remember that we can never assume someone knows something. Well, everybody knows you're not supposed to do such and such. Please don't do that. So let's go ahead and give people tools to succeed. And one of the tools we can give them to succeed is what they need to know at work to be safe and to keep your content and your data and your information safe as well. Additionally, we asked, should there be a crisis, any kind of a crisis, could you contain information leaks in that crisis? And really, we can take the unsure and the know and group those together, because an I don't know is as good as a no. and almost 80% are not sure if they could contain information during a crisis. So whether that crisis is a natural disaster or some type of a man-made disaster that briefly or for a temporary time takes your attention away from data in your organization, from securing that data, we're not sure if that's a vulnerability point. That's something to really sit down and talk with your senior leadership teams about. If we had a crisis, could we contain information? Good place to start the conversation. I wanted to share this with you. I found it, I thought it was a good image. This is, with all due credit to Deloitte Consulting. This is from one of their debrief webcasts. And this talks about insider threats. And today we're going to be talking about intentional, but mostly accidental insider threats. But let's just keep in mind some of this information. And again, when you download the brief, it will include this image, and you can find that on the Deloitte website as well. 97% of insider threat cases studied by Stanford University involved an employee whose behavior had been flagged previously, and the organization failed to follow up on it. I want to just briefly mention, we have covered many times on these calls Firestorm's Behavioral Risk Threat Assessment Program, and that would fall into behavioral threats. So when we see an issue, we need to make sure we have the mechanisms in place to not only report that, but to actually address it, and to make sure that the information related to it is in a central repository so that it doesn't sort of get lost. So the IT department has one report, and the human resource department has another report, and the person gets transferred to a new division and they never see anything at all. We need to make sure that we have a central repository where behaviors of concern can be reviewed within context of each other. 59% of employees who leave an organization voluntarily or involuntarily say they take sensitive data with them. And we're going to look at a statistic later that shows that they plan to use that information at a later role. 92% of insider threat cases were preceded by a negative work event, a demotion, a termination, a dispute with a supervisor. 51% of employees involved in insider threat incident had a history of violating IT security policies leading up to the incident. Now, violating IT security policies means two things. One, they have to know about them. It is not enough to say, well, we have a document. Didn't you read it? You have to give the document to people. You have to help them work through whatever the document or the policy or the plan may be, and then you have to test to assure comprehension. 90% of IT employees indicate that if they lost their job, they would take sensitive company data with them. And 25% employees have used email to exfiltrate, which is a lovely word for take, sensitive data from their organization. So let's look at how all of that evolved. What exactly are we talking about? Today we're going to talk about accidental compromises and a couple of intentional ones. First, we're going to look at phishing. Then we're going to look at how leaks occur. And then we're going to look at sometimes when you notice something that shouldn't be there that is there. And how about those passwords? My password still works. And last, we're going to look at, I was just walking by and I happened to see something. I was just browsing. Before we do, we're going to look at some stats from Gemalto. These, you can go to breachlevelindex.com, great stats, and they keep track of recent data breaches. And they job of sort of giving you a snapshot into the summary of a breach, how many records were compromised, how they were compromised. And one of the things that I think is notable in this area while we do see a couple of malicious outsider threats, two of the threats that we see right in front of us, one is a malicious insider threat, and the other is an accidental insider compromise of information. And so what we're seeing is about 38 to 50% of the time we have someone inside the organization, or it is an accidental release of information. Here's another screen from March compromises. And again, we see the first one, the GMO payment gateway, an accidental loss, malicious outsider, malicious insider. And so I want you to be aware of this information. It's a great resource where you can find information. But if you're thinking that the biggest threat that you're protecting against is some scary outsider, I want you to rethink your impression. You know, what this reminded me of when I was doing my research on this, we teach children, or we did teach children, about stranger danger. And when we talked to children about what a stranger looked like, the stranger looked like a scary person with a black hat, and maybe they just had a scary looking face. When actually what we needed to be teaching them was that the stranger danger looks like everyone else, actually looks like people we know. And so the same thing applies here. We need to remember that while there is danger that's lurking out there from some scary person in an anonymous mask, there's also the person sitting next to you at your desk who may accidentally release information. The number of breach incidents by type and by source give us some interesting information. And again, what we want to do here is look at the combined data together on the right-hand side. We come up with a number of about 38% that is accidental or inside our organization. It comes from inside. And that number has been consistently, it rolls between 28% and 38% consistently over the past 4 or 5 years. So let's start and let's look at some phishing. Now, these are, I don't want to make fun of phishing, but old phishes were kind of funny. They may have come out of foreign countries and used translation software in order to translate the message, and so they were easy to spot. I have quite a delicate question which touches directly to you. This odd use of grammar and language is a pretty immediate spot that somebody's phishing. Now, it depends on the source. Certainly, we all do business internationally, and I know that when I translate my emails into Italian, I'm probably laughed at as well. But I'm not asking for sensitive data. He says that you made him transfer funds to your PayPal account under fictional pretext. So as soon as we see PayPal or anything that has to do with monetary or funds or anything like that, every red flag should go up. And so that's this particular example is one that's a little bit older, a little bit more common, and should be easy to spot. However, there are many that we see today which really have a look of validity about them because it's so easy to recreate. You can go to anybody's website and recreate their logo, their look. We all receive official emails from whomever our vendors are, whether it be Microsoft or Amazon or Verizon or AT&T. We receive this information. So the template is out there. And the next step in order to make this template phish be more realistic is that the bad guys keep all of the links in the email so that as you scroll over links, you say, well, it really does link into AT&T.com. This link really does go to Verizon. This must be real. However, 1 or 2 links within the email will not go to the company of origination, or that we think it is. So where it says click here to verify your account, or click here to change your password, or click here to learn more, it's that call to action that actually leads to a phish website. And when they're very good, they make sure that that URL as closely as possible resembles the source of the phish, or contains wording in it that makes you believe, well, I guess it could be scam.com AT&T, but the word scam is not there. So it's some other code that makes you think, well, maybe this could be AT&T or Verizon or whatever the case may be. So how to spot a phish? There are a few different types. First, we have spear phishing. And spear phishing is highly targeted, and it hones in on a specific group or individuals in an organization. So it may be one whole, something that's geared toward philanthropic organizations. So we have one email that's sort of in a general way. The wording is designed to get that group of people to respond to the call to action. Then there's whaling, and that's a form of phishing that's targeted at executive level individuals. We see a lot of that, sadly, on business networking websites like LinkedIn and others, where you know, if you are the CEO of a major organization or a C-suite executive, people assume there's an income level associated with that, and they may target or lure those executives with adult-oriented material or material meant to, congratulations, you've been nominated for the XYZ Public Relations Prize, something like that, to get you to click in. And then next is cloning, and that's where what we've been talking about, where a legitimate email is duplicated, but very subtle parts of the content are replaced by malicious links or attachments. Again, you got to teach your folks about this. There's some great material in this. Download the paper when we're done with the session, and use that and share it with your folks. Now, this last one I want to talk to you about because it's a very important point and trend that we do see in this area of phishing. And this is kind of an interesting phish in that it replicates a Microsoft account. Now, one thing we keep telling people, and we really need to remember this, Microsoft is never going to ask you to download anything from an email. It's never going to ask you for your username or your password. But this is it's not too bad of a one. If you received an email and you're busy, right? You're in a cab on your way to a meeting or an Uber on your way to a meeting. You get an alert on your phone that says, we detected unusual account activity recently for you. Somebody from Romania or Russia or China with an IP address of blah, 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 which, by the way, is an impossible IP address, tried to sign into your account. Now, if this was you, you can safely ignore the same email. But if you're not sure this was you, someone might be trying to compromise your account. Please review your recent activity, and we'll help you take corrective action. Please check out this document for further instructions. And the number of people who clicked that document was huge. And this launched the Cerber ransomware as a service. Now, this was really rather convoluted, because once people clicked in, check out this document for further instructions, it then launched a Chrome update page. So people got confused because then they received something that said, oh, your Chrome is out of date. Click here to upload the newest version. And because there were sort of two simultaneous things going on, people were just like, fine, I'll do it. And when they clicked download Chrome, there was an executable file called chrome_update.exe. if you teach your employees one thing, the one thing everybody should know is you never download a .exe file. You never launch a .exe file unless IT is standing right there and saying, yes, you may do that. You may never launch a .exe file. It's an executable file. And this particular file launches a ransomware application. So the next question that you've got to ask yourself is, if tomorrow morning you come into work, one of your employees says, I just booted up and I have ransomware on my computer. I have got to get the report over to our CEO so that she can do her presentation in 22 minutes. They want $150. Do I pay it? If you don't know exactly what you would do, you need to make that decision and you need to have that conversation. Do you call IT? Do you call the police? Do you call your CEO? Do you pay the money? What do you do? So everybody today in this world needs to have that decision ready. And it happens to everybody. You know, this little headline just illustrates the CEO of Snapchat, who is a technologically savvy person, accidentally leaked employee data after a phish. It was an email scam, clicked in, said fine, forward it, and that's how that happened. More than 97% of phishing emails that we see right now contain ransomware. So pretty much all of the phishes have ransomware in them. And this is from Aaron Higby, who's the co-founder and CTO at phishme.com. Check him out. All right, how do leaks occur? Well, we saw most recently a very high-profile leak involving a young woman, Realty winner, and Realty has very specific political views and felt like what she was doing was patriotic. It was illegal, and there are lifelong repercussions to her actions. So we need to make sure as well that we're training our employees who have grown up with social media and technology, who have had a learning iPad since they were 2 years old or younger, that transferring sensitive data can be a criminal act and can be prosecuted. And this young woman is learning that lesson in a very, very difficult way. What happens when we do it completely accidentally? A Boeing employee inadvertently leaked the personal information of 36,000 coworkers late last year. 36,000 employees. And what happened was an employee went to email someone, and you know when you're really busy, you have people's names who are close to each other in your Outlook or other email program, and if you have autofill, you may just type the first letter and their name just fills right in there. Well, his wife's name was very similar to someone he was emailing. Also, what happens is you're really busy, so maybe he meant to email his wife, but what he meant to email her was the menu for dinner, and instead he grabbed the entire personnel data file and sent it to her and completely compromised that information. He may trust his wife. I would like to think he does, but we don't know what that person is going to do with all of this information. And in hidden columns within that Excel spreadsheet were highly sensitive data that you could easily unhide. There was a data breach at a printing company where thousands of client orders and job documents were leaked. And these, the leaks of these documents included attorney-client privilege information, labor filings, lawsuits, Hollywood studio information. It affected more than 400 locations in 13 countries and went on for 4 months before it was repaired. Now, PIP owner said that the breach appeared to stem from a third-party IT firm that accidentally misconfigured the backup protocols, essentially leaving a backdoor open in the system. How many of you on this call would know how to spot whether someone had misconfigured your backup protocols on your servers? I don't know how to check that. Do you? We need to trust our vendors. We need to trust our internal and external IT people. And then once we have things worked on, we have a new server deployed, whatever the case may be, we need to test. We need to test vulnerabilities. The best thing you can do is find a vulnerability, because if you find it, you know it's there, you can fix it. There are only 2 kinds of organizations. Jack Healy of Firestorm says this all the time. There are those that have been breached and those that don't know they've been breached. Those that know they've been breached and those that don't know. Here's an example of one of the pieces of information that was leaked. So now, well, would you look at that? Confidential information that's accidentally leaked. This is an actual screenshot from a social posting that I found while monitoring for a client. We have a client that has us monitor for behaviors of concern, postings, nothing private. And one thing I noticed was there was one employee, and this company encourages the use of social media in their work environment, which is great. They do a lot of Instagram and a lot of posting to encourage people to not only engage with their brand, but to work for their company, to try their products. The problem is that they weren't really training their people on how you do that effectively without leaking confidential information. And this employee almost every night would have a little playlist of music, and she would post what she was eating on her break, and invariably included an image of her computer screen. And in this example, she actually had a piece of a document she was working on as well. We've blurred this, but I could clearly see her desktop. I could clearly see information on multiple clients, because this is a receiving clerk. So there was sensitive client information and vendor information, and that document, which was a purchase order of a kind on her desktop, had confidential information as well. So we have to teach our employees, if you want to take a picture inside of our organization to help promote our wonderful culture and our products and our services, we need to make sure everybody in the image is on board and that there's nothing confidential in the background that may hurt or compromise data or brand or reputation. This is an example of the Magic Soft season. Their plans may have been leaked in a very innocent agent photo. They took a picture, but in the background on that whiteboard was the complete planning. Recently, last week, or I think it was the week before, we had a freshman politician who was working on a bill and was doing some research on Wikipedia and took a screenshot of that research. However, the browsers that were open in the background were all adult websites, many of them of what would be considered an illegal subject or illegal nature. He claimed that someone else sent him the image and he just reused it without checking. It doesn't really matter. It's a bad thing. And we all have to be a little bit more careful about what we post, when we post it, and you need to look all throughout the image. And this one was quite disturbing. How do we secure our data when we have a ton of outsiders or transient employees by nature accessing it. Restaurants are experience this because they have highly transient employee populations, or they have employees who work at multiple different types of restaurants. They might work at 3 different companies in a week. Uber is one of those. They accidentally had personal information on hundreds of their drivers leaked through a simple upload process. So when you signed on to become an Uber driver and went to update your information and update a document, suddenly you could see the documents of all Uber drivers. And it was an accident, but suddenly all of that information was made public. This is what this subject we're on now, Hey, My Key Still Works, is really the reason I wanted to have this session. I was having a conversation with a friend recently, and I can't even recall exactly what the subject matter was, but she said, hey, I know where we can get that information on the blank employer website. And I said, but didn't you quit there? You don't work there anymore. And she said, yeah, it's okay, my password still works. And I said, well, you can't go look at that if it's confidential information. And she said, oh, it's okay. If they didn't want me to have access to it, my password wouldn't still work. So what would happen if you terminated an employee who technically had the keys to your kingdom and refused to give them up? An Indianapolis-based college had exactly that happen in the affecting their Google Analytics and their Google Webmaster accounts. For those of you on the phone who understand your Analytics account, your Webmaster account, all your pay-per-click information, all of your earnings information, all of the monies that you spend, credit card information, etc., that runs those Google pieces of your account, also the Google string that you embed into the code on your account that allows for your search engine optimization so that people can even find you, that was suddenly compromised, and the IT employee in charge said, no problem, give me $200,000, I'll be happy to give it back to you. Would you pay? You might prosecute, but would you pay first? Because you need that information. Have you talked about that scenario? Have you thought about it? It happens all the time. A disgruntled Marriott employee hacked a reservation and slashed rates from $12 to $59. Marriott had to honor those. It was a field day for a minute. What I really want you to think about is, whether you have 5 employees or 50,000 employees, you have to have really strong systems in this area. You have to have a process for bringing employees on and helping employees leave. We have to provision them in and deprovision them out. But just because you cancel their email account, A, doesn't mean that they're out of all the other databases they have access to, and some email, Microsoft Outlook, others, can take anywhere from 1 hour to 48 hours to fully deprovision someone. If you cut off someone's access when they're in the account, do you know how long they can mess around in that account? You don't, because it varies based upon program. Until they refresh, they're still in there. And on applications like SharePoint and others, again, it can take up to 48 hours to deprovision someone out. So you must have an inventory when you bring an employee on that shows what databases they've been given access to, when, and then you must make sure that you understand the timing so that when you deprovision them, when you terminate them, when you transfer them, their access to the sensitive databases is canceled along with their role. You have to change passwords for all privileged or confidential accounts. If you say, oh, that's too much trouble, well then, if there's a compromise, it really lands at your doorstep. And don't leave disabled accounts in your system. Don't say, well, you know, I've turned off their access. They can't get back there even though their name still exists and their role still exists. Get rid of all of the data. And then keep an eye on access logs to spot anything unusual. And that is an effort, but it's well worth it. Because more than half of the employees surveyed kept confidential corporate data after leaving or losing a job. 40% plan on using that somewhere else. So I really want you to think about, if you're an HR manager today, or if you're a senior manager today, or any of you on this call, if somebody came to you, one of your employees came to you, and we have to make sure they're not afraid to come to you, right? They need to be able to come to you and say something bad has happened so that you can respond to it. If they come to you and say, I accidentally just sent the entire payroll data, I sent all of the Social Security numbers of every employee, I sent all of our confidential usernames and passwords to someone outside of our organization, or to someone inside of the organization who's not supposed to have it, what will you do next? Have you practiced that? Do you have an answer today, right now? Because the chances are it's going to happen to someone today. You might not be on this call, but there is someone today getting that exact message. And if it were you, what would you do? Did you know that 70% of employees say that they would share sensitive or confidential data? And do you know why? The number one reason why? Because they were directed to do so by management. So we must rethink our internal processes, because we're shooting ourselves in the foot. As you have an opportunity to download this paper, I want you to review some of the steps that you can take to reduce your exposure and to help your employees consider better ways to be safer at their workstations. In the Verizon 2016 study, we found that 30% of messages were opened by the target across all campaigns. 12% of those people went on to click malicious links within those emails. 30%. That's a pretty significant number. So, are insiders or outsiders a bigger threat to your business now that we've seen this? Well, that is a trick question. Both are likely to cause havoc. They're both a challenge, and this stat is from the Ponemon Institute on Cybersecurity. And as said by the chairman and founder, Dr. Larry Ponemon, the pressure to be productive is causing employees to put sensitive data at risk. We're moving too fast. We're not reading thoroughly, or we're reading too much into something. We're clicking links where we shouldn't. We need to just step back, take a moment, and think. And these are the key traits of hackable employees because they're so busy. And the number one problem is they lack education and training. Firestorm would like to help you with that. We do have a cyber threat intelligence program that identifies cybersecurity threats. Contact us about that confidentially. We'll walk you through the 5 phases of activation and how you can better train and help your employees to be safe at work and to keep your confidential data safe. You can contact us confidentially at webinars@firestorm.com. You can reach out to Bill Baker or myself. And again, you can find all this information in the paper you can download at the end of this session. The Accidental Insider Compromise. I've enjoyed talking to you about this today, but what I really want to talk to you about today is thanking Brenda Truelove. Brenda, do you have any last closing comments for us today?
Well, thank you again, Karen, and I always learn something from you, and I took notes today and found 3 things I personally want to do better, which is to slow down. So I'm probably guilty of being too fast to click on things, so I'm going to take your good advice and take that to heart myself. So But yes, we do appreciate the opportunity to share and learn together, and I know the people who participated today probably took away some other great information. And when you hopefully are not in trouble with some event like this, but if you find yourself in that situation, our professionally speaking workshops can also help you, craft your message of what you're going to say to your customers in such an event. So that's becoming more and more the focus of corporate engagement, is helping people find resources to help them with the pains they find in their businesses. And sometimes, a leak or a breach is one of those things they need to be able to speak to. So hope you'll join us at our workshop at July the 12th. And if you need any other assistance, please give us a call.
Well, thank you so much, Brenda. Thank you, Bill Baker, for being our moderator in the background today. We always appreciate it. And thank you, everyone on the call. I hope we were able to share some important information for you and your employees. And please remember to predict, plan, and perform. And training your employees on how to avoid simple mistakes is a big part of that in keeping your data safe from the accidental insider compromise. Thank you, everyone. You can contact us at webinars@firestorm.com. For now, I'll give you back your day, and this will conclude our session. Have a great day, and goodbye.